Nuclear Heat, Volume 7. I can't believe this is already the 7th edition of the show. We started on October 1st here with WrestlingInc.com. It is November the 12th, I believe, Thursday afternoon. And I'm here to talk to you today about what happens when your booking plans get destroyed. How do you handle it? What's the best way to go about it? Is there a way to plan for that? Now, I want to tell you, back during when I was booking, and this literally went for all three companies. This went, from when I was writing, when I started writing for the WWE in like 96, all the way till the end of, when I stopped writing for TNA, which was 2010, whatever it was, 2011, I don't remember. But basically, during that 15-year stretch, this is the way that television was written. We literally knew what we were going to be doing on pay-per-view to pay-per-view. We knew the pay-per-view cards in advance. But what we did was we booked the individual weeks, week to week to week to week, until we got to the pay-per-view. We did this for a couple of reasons. I think the most important reason was back then we listened to the fans and ratings dictated to us. We looked at the ratings every single week like it was a science. Therefore, we followed the trends. Who was getting over? Who wasn't getting over? Who were the viewers tuning into? Who were the viewers turning out of? And what we did was we continued to adjust on a weekly basis based on what those numbers were telling us. Therefore, it would only make sense that the ratings would continue to climb. If you looked at your numbers and you sat down with the next show and you gave them what worked in the prior show and you started eliminating what didn't work in the prior show, it's obvious the ratings are going to grow. That's the way I used to conduct business, when I was the head writer at all three companies. Listen, I'll be honest with you today. By the looks of things, I don't think either TNA or WWE, I don't think they pay any attention to the ratings. I know when I went back as a consultant at TNA, the ratings didn't mean anything anymore. As a matter of fact, when I went back there and I started consulting, I asked to see the ratings, to see the breakdowns, and quite frankly, I felt I was the only one looking at them. I really didn't even feel Spike TV was looking at them at times. And we did the same thing in the WWE. Now, why do I come to that conclusion? I come to that conclusion because it's real simple. If you are in a 15-year decline of ratings, then you're obviously not looking at and studying the ratings. Because if you started to let the ratings dictate to you and you started going with what was working and you started taking away from what wasn't working, obviously the ratings would go up. That's just common sense. But what I learned in the wrestling business was a lot of times there are huge egos involved. This is why I don't like committees. And a lot of times it always came down to people's opinions. What were the opinions of the people, writing the show or involved in the writing of the show? It always came down to who they wanted to push, who they didn't want to push, and that dictated the show. And that's why I always had a problem writing in committees, because at the end of the day, your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. The only measuring stick we have are the people that are watching our show. With that being said, from an educational standpoint, I could look at the ratings since WrestleMania, and I could see a steady decline of ratings for over 6 months. Now, when that happens, you have to look at everything, and you have to look at who's holding the belt, because let's face it, that's the hood ornament of the car. So you've got to look at who the champion is. And if the champion is not drawing you television ratings and bringing you viewers, well, then maybe we need to change course and maybe we need to go another way. And I want to explain something. To all of a sudden, since the WWE isn't drawing ratings anymore and they've lost 800,000 people in the last year, all of a sudden everybody's saying ratings don't matter. That's the excuse now. Ratings don't matter. Well, first of all, that's absolutely nonsense, because it's the only tool that a network has to measure whether a show is successful or not. It's also the only tool a network has to know what to charge advertisers for advertising. Therefore, ratings will always be important, both in television, both in radio. That will never change. But for argument's sake, say ratings aren't important anymore. Like a lot of fans of the WWE want to believe. Okay, ratings aren't important anymore. Well, what's important? The WWE network is important. Well, where are they drawing potential customers from? Obviously, they're drawing potential customers from the people that watch Monday Night Raw. So even if you say that ratings don't matter, as that pool goes down more and more on Monday nights, there are your potential WWE Network subscribers. So either way, the fact that the ratings are going down is not a good thing. So this is going to lead me right to, well, what happens when all of a sudden a monkey wrench is thrown into the plans? Now, from what I could tell, from the WWE, they're booking out and they're booking in advance, because everything I see just looks very bland, very vanilla, very boring, like they're looking to get to the next step. So I think their long-term booking right now at the WWE, I don't think they're doing it week by week by week as far as the big angles are concerned. So with that, I felt the injury to Rollins could really be a blessing of disguise, because due to their long-term booking, I felt that the WWE was going to stick with the Rollins plan. Were they going to make a change to flip the title in November to Reigns? Maybe. Would they have waited till January? Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, looking at the ratings again, the Seth Rollins experiment was not working, regardless of how great a worker the guy is. People were not tuning in. They were tuning out. So knowing how the WWE works, Rollins was a pick due to somebody's opinion. They thought Rollins had the potential. They thought Rollins could go far. Now, the WWE had a plan that they were going to stick to, whether it was going to work or not. The WWE has a way of saying, here it is. We're going to shove it down your throat. You're going to eat it whether you like it or not. That's the way they've done business prior to Attitude and also after Attitude. So that told me that even though the numbers proved Rollins weren't working, they were going to stick with Rollins. Because they were not going to be proven wrong. They were going to be right at the end of the day in their minds. Well, now Rollins gets hurt. Now you have a perfect opportunity, because now all the plans you had go directly in the garbage. Now, this could be a curse, absolutely, if not handled the right way. But on the other side of the coin, this can be an absolute blessing, because you can throw away all those stale plans and you can start with a brand new slate. And now with that brand new slate, you can go anywhere you want to go. It's a new, fresh beginning. It's a new start. And situations like that excited me, to be honest with you. So in other words, if a Austin got hurt back in the day, or a Shawn, or, put anybody in that role, there's the initial response of, what a bummer. We got to rewrite TV. We had all these plans. But then once you get into it, you realize, okay, it's a white sheet of paper. We can start from scratch and we can take it from there. Now, what the WWE decided to do was they decided to put a tournament together. my booking would have been a little bit different because I would have made the title the most important thing. The title would have become the star of the show. Look at it logically and look at it realistically. You had a champion, and all of a sudden, in an instant, that champion gets hurt. He's out 6 to 9 months. All of a sudden, the title is vacant. Now, everybody who thinks they didn't have an opportunity to have the title, well, now they do have an opportunity to get it. That's what the show should have been all about. Everybody now has an opportunity. We could have glimpsed into the backstage politicking to see, who got in the tournament, why they got into the tournament. We could have gotten personalities over that way, characters that way. Stories would have developed, but we didn't get that from the WWE. This is why I was so down on them. What we got was a tournament with names, and we had no idea how those names got into the tournament. They were just there. And there were a lot of question marks. Why would Roman Reigns be in the tournament if he had already earned the right to meet Rollins? He should now earn the right to go into the finals of the tournament. That could have been a story right there. That Reigns is already in the finals. That could have been a story right there. Then you have questions. Why is Sheamus in the tournament? Sheamus has money in the bank. So you already know that Sheamus is going to lose because he's already got money in the bank. So he doesn't need to go forward in the tournament. Then you got a guy like Tyler Breeze, who has not wrestled a match yet, on Raw, being put in the tournament. Why? Why did he earn that spot? Where is that story? Kalisto, why is this guy in the tournament? Why isn't Bray Wyatt in the tournament? Why isn't Brock Lesnar in the tournament? This could have been storytelling. This could have created characters and could have really gotten us interested in the product again. That's what I was looking forward to based on my experience. But what we got instead was a tournament of wrestling matches. We don't know how the pairings got made up. The first night of the tournament, it's all babyface and heel. There's no heel, babyface. Yes, that's going to come later, but I'm talking about the first night. There wasn't any match like that. There were long, drawn-out matches over commercial breaks. The announcers were not making the belt important. At the end of the day, it was just another wrestling show. By the time Raw started to the time it ended, it had lost about 600,000 viewers. Okay? You can dice that any way you want it. At the end of the day, the writers did not do their job, or Vince McMahon did not do their job, whoever was responsible. The show opened with some interest at 3,400 people. 3,400,000 people, no, 3.4 million people, and ended with 2.8, which was a loss of 600,000 people in a 3-hour span. They did not do their job. They did not hold the interest of the audience. Simple. They went a very, very, very predictable route rather than make the belt the vocal point. Everybody's vying for this. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different reason of why they should be in. Everybody has a different reason of how they get in. It could have been a beautifully written and crafted show. They had an entire week to do it. In my opinion, they did not do it. So basically, when I was put in that position, and it happened a lot. Let me start with the WWE, and then I'll go to WCW. There are a couple of instances in WWE. Obviously, the first one was, after WrestleMania 14, we did not see Shawn Michaels anymore because he had back issues. He was totally taken off of TV. There was an instance where Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was red hot, was hurt in the match with Owen Hart. And, he didn't wrestle for a while, and we had to replace him. But let me start with Shawn Michaels, which is a beautiful place to start. Heading into WrestleMania, we knew that Shawn Michaels was having back issues. We knew that it was only going to be a matter of time before Shawn Michaels was going to be put on the shelf. We didn't know exactly when, but we knew that the time may come, so we might have to, have a backup plan. So if you go back and you look at all those Attitude Era shows, you will see how slowly but surely in the background we were building Triple H. We would give Triple H the mic. Triple H would talk before Shawn spoke. We were getting Triple H over. We were grooming Triple H to take the place of Shawn whenever he was going to leave. In conjunction with that, the New Age Outlaws were coming into their own because we knew we were going to marry the Outlaws to Triple H and China and make them a force in the absence of Shawn Michaels. So after a couple of weeks, when you had DX going strong now with this new group, all of a sudden we forgot Shawn Michaels. We look at the case in point with Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is why back then every character on the show meant something. Every character had a story. Every character had a character. Everybody on the roster, we tried to get over. The object is to make everybody a star, protect everybody. Therefore, if a Stone Cold Steve Austin gets injured, there are 5, 6 guys to replace him with. I mean, look back in the day at that point. DX was red hot. Mick Foley was red hot. The Rock was red hot. Even Ken Shamrock was red hot. Goldust was red hot at the time. So when you go back and look, you build other characters on the roster. So in case somebody gets hurt, you can slide somebody back in. That is part of the problem that has happened now in the WWE. Cena went to film a television show. Undertaker is a part-timer. Brock Lesnar is a part-timer. But what full-time guys did they build up to be able to step in the boots of a Cena or a Lesnar, or in this case, even a Rollins? That's the problem. They put so much emphasis on the main story, and all the other stories of the card, they were just wrestling matches. Week after week after week, characters weren't getting built, storylines weren't getting built. And I got to tell you something. You're not going to get characters over when people don't care about them. They need to build an emotional bond with that wrestler in order to care about that wrestler and either love him or hate him. You have to build that reaction. You're not going to build a reaction by putting guys out there week after week after week and having great wrestling matches. On a personal level, that doesn't tell me anything about the guy. It doesn't tell me anything about his character. I don't know whether to cheer him. I don't know whether to boo him. All I know is he's a great wrestler. And right now, you got a lot of great wrestlers on the WWE roster, but nobody is standing out because they haven't built them enough for the audience to either cheer them, boo them, love them, hate them. That's the problem. That's why the guy was not there to step up the way we had a new DX group step up in the absence of Shawn Michaels leaving. We had a Rock to step up when Austin got hurt. We had a Mick Foley to step up when Austin got hurt. When somebody got hurt, we rolled another superstar into that spot. That's planning. That's why you have to get everybody on your roster over. Everybody is a vital piece of the puzzle and a piece of the team. In the WWE failing to have done that, now they're faced with a problem. Now they're faced with a dilemma. But like I said, they could have made the correction with the tournament. backstage stories, what guys were doing to get in, the politics being played, who was hurting who to eliminate them from the tournament. There was so much storytelling left on the table that they turned it into a tournament, and they lost 600,000 viewers along the way. And listen, if you love me or hate me, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me, because I'm telling you the same thing I do. I look at the facts. This is not Vince Russo's opinion. Something made 600,000 viewers jump off of that show on Monday night. And what it was that there was no investment into this tournament. So that's what happened. And here's the thing. They can correct it at any week. They can correct it at any week. But for whatever reason, they just keep going to the wrestling. And the numbers keep diving. And listen, if you want to say it was a taped show, well, let me break the news to you. The same time last Monday night, it was a tape show from the UK on the same exact night. And this year, they drew 800,000 people less. If you don't want to think that's a problem, don't think it's a problem. They can continue to go in that direction. Quite frankly, I really don't care. Now, I want to tell you about my WCW situation, because I had built an entire story around Bret Hart, building him up. He finally became the WCW champion, got his due, in my opinion. I don't remember if we had already made him a part of the new NWO or were making him a part of one. I don't exactly remember what happened. All I do know is on Monday, I got a call. Bret suffered a concussion at the hands of Goldberg. He was going to be out for God knows how long. So all of a sudden now the title was going to be vacant. What were we going to do? We had a pay-per-view coming up. So my thing is, like I said, let's start with a white sheet of paper, because now anything goes. We have a clean slate. Let's think outside the box. Let's think up something differently. Let's shake this thing up a little bit. So basically, I called a creative meeting. So it wasn't just me. I called a creative meeting. I brought everybody together, and we discussed the possibilities. And what I always tell people to do with especially writers, when you get stuck, go back to logic. Start with logic. Case in point, WWE did not do this with their tournament. I'll go through it again. Why is Sheamus in it if he's got the Money in the Bank? Why is Reigns in it if he already won the right to face the champion? Why is Kalisto in it? Why is Breeze in it if he's never wrestled a match in his life? Why isn't Bray Wyatt in it? Because The Undertaker and Kane are more important to him than the WWE title. If that's the case, he shouldn't be in the WWE. So there was no logic from the get-go. So I wanted to look at this thing logically. And the story I came up with was we were going to make Sid the number one guy, in this battle royal. And Sid was going to battle through everybody and literally be the last man standing, waiting for the last guy to come out. Now, keep in mind, it would have been close to an hour that Sid would have gone through this war since he was the first one in the match. So now Sid is absolutely dead on his feet. He's got to pass one more guy. He's got to overcome all odds. And who comes to the ring at that time? One of the hottest shoot fighters, MMA fighters, in the history of the UFC at the time. And it was Tank Abbott. So all of a sudden now you got this Sid who just went for an hour. Here comes a legitimate MMA champion, Tank Abbott, walking to the ring fresh as a daisy. The idea was they were going to have their match. They were going to, have the match, whatever. But then tell the story. Sid's exhausted. He's been in there for an hour. Tank is fresh. The MMA fighter knocks Sid out, knocks him out clean. The story would have made total sense. Tank Abbott was legit at the time, and who would have thunk Tank Abbott would have been the new WCW champion? Now, of course, your wrestling purists are going to crap all over that, but the fact of the matter was it was a logical story. A wrestler who had gone an hour all of a sudden had to be faced with this fresh UFC fighter. What would have really happened? So, from there, you figure it out. Maybe Tank holds the belt for 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, you look at the ratings and you listen for the people. If it does work, you go with it. But at least now you've done something out of the box. You got the people talking about it. And like I said, you'll know in a week or two whether it's working or not. And if it's not working, you just make the adjustment. But at least now it was logical, it was believable, and it made sense. And then you basically see where you go from there. Well, obviously, at that point, somebody in the meeting stooged it off and obviously put their spin, a million reasons why Tank Abbott, a legitimate UFC fighter, the 30th guy in the match can't knock out the guy that's been in there for an hour. And, I was called in the office, oh, Vince, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean I can't do that? This is wrestling. We can do anything. It's make believe. One guy doesn't really beat another. We can do anything. But since this person who wasn't really well versed or schooled on wrestling or entertainment or any of that stuff, he was an accountant, quite honestly, he basically said, Vince, you can't do that. And at that point I said, well, then don't do it. I'm done. I went home. The rest is history. But basically, that's what I'm getting to. Whether you like that story or not really doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm not a Nimrod that I'm not going to let ratings go for 15 years on a steady decline and not make the adjustments that need to be made through the ratings that are the only thing that are giving us concrete opinions of the people watching the show. So if Abbott would have got the belt and the ratings would have nosedived the next week and the week after that, well, then we would have made a change. Rollins' ratings have been going down since WrestleMania, 6 months, and no change has been made. So this could have been a blessing in disguise. This is how I always treated it. And this is what I liked about it the best. It really challenged your creativity because here you had a plan in place. We're going along according to plan. All of a sudden, a monkey wrench is thrown into that. Now you got to think on your feet. Now your back's against the wall. Now it's pressure time. Now you got to show, can I really be creative or not? And that's an exciting time. It was always a very exciting time to me because now we had to go to plan B. There was no preparing for plan B. Let's think outside of the box. Let's think with a new start. Let's think logical. Where do we go from here? So it was an opportunity I always looked very, very forward to. I think the WWE went the safe route. That's my opinion. I think they went a route. Here are 16 names. We're going to book them according to the matches will be good. That's how we're going to book them. These guys will have great matches. That's how we're going to book it. Well, again, 600,000 people between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock didn't think the matches were great enough to hang around for. Those are the facts. They are not Vince Russo's opinion. So you know what? You can hate the messenger, cut the promos on the messenger, write your notes and your bleeps and your blahs about the messenger. The fact of the matter was we started with 3.4 million. We ended with 2.8 million. 6,000 people got lost in the shuffle. So there we are. That's how you handle it. When the booking goes awry, when there is a major injury, and you must go back to start, and you must rewrite the show. But my thing, restart it with an open mind. Look at the opportunities. Look at the directions. Don't think inside of your little shoebox. Let's go outside of that and see if we can turn this negative into a positive. That's what you really want to do. And the positive would be, how many guys can we get over because of this situation with this one wrestler. That's where the focus should always be, because it goes right back into everybody on the roster should be over. So when one guy gets hurt, the next superstar can step in his shoes and you're off to the races. Woo! Well, that's about it. I hope you like my haircut. I was trying to grow it out, to be honest with you, but I couldn't handle it anymore. I'd wake up in the morning and it was all over the place. My wife was complaining to me that I look like crap and I look like I had long gray hair. So I got the haircut today. I'm styling, I'm profiling. I hope you like it. Listen, that's it for Nuclear Heat. Join us at WrestlingInc.com on Monday. We will talk about Raw once it's finished. And as always, you can join me all week. I do video podcasting all week at VinceRussoBrand.com. And listen, man, love me or hate me, this isn't a popularity contest for me. This is the truth. I'm going to tell you what the cold, hard truth is, whether you want to hear it or you don't want to hear it. And if you don't like hearing the truth, then you're going to hate me, and that's okay. But I only know one way, and the way I know is the truth right between the eyes. So that's it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great rest of your evening, and take care.